international criminal law and from the point of view of the human rights law. And we will hear from Mr. Jernej, thank you, Jernej Letman-Černić, which is an expert in human rights law, teaching it at the Graduate School of Government and European Studies in Slovenia. So, Mr. Černić, thank you. Let's hear about Slovenia.
Can I put the microphone here or I have to hold it?
Yes, you can put it.
Try to put it on and it's possible. With the microphone.
Because you have to think as well.
Make it complicated.
Okay, good morning to everybody. First I would like to thank the organizers for organizing this conference, especially to Luca for inviting me to the city of Bucharest. And I have to say before I start my presentation that when I usually make these presentations in Slovenia, the sessions are always well attended. There are always more than 100 or 200 people, but they are mostly elderly, you know. They are 70 and beyond. So it's good to hear, to see such a young audience here in Bucharest. Now, I'll talk today about consolidating democracy through transitional justice in Slovenia. And firstly, in my first part of my presentation, I'll talk about I'll try to contextualize what really happened in Slovenia after the Second World War, and I will concentrate on the gravest crimes which were committed in Slovenia under the communist regime. Secondly, then I'll try to see whether there are some connections between the democracy and transitional justice. Transitional justice is a precondition for a full-fledged democracy. And thirdly, I'll try to show whether measures adopted in Slovenia could be said measures adopted in the field of transitional justice could be said that they contribute to the consolidating democracy in the Republic of Slovenia. Then I'll do some general conclusions in this respect. Now, when you usually hear about Slovenia, probably the first photo you see is the photo of Bled. No? This picture is lake with the island with the church on it, and everything looks so nice, idyllic. It couldn't be nicer, you know, especially if you want to get married there, so it's very nice here. But Slovenian history and Slovenian context is not so nice as the photo you see on the slide. There are a number of issues which have not been told in the past, especially during the communist regimes. And one of those were the crimes committed immediately after the Second World War. And if I may, I'll just start with the recent discovery in 2008, where Slovenian investigators discovered a mass grave site in Huda Jama. It's a place near Laško in Slovenia. And Huda Jama is a cave, it's a pit. And investigators started the investigations there in 2008 because the locals said that there was maybe some remains of the summary executions kept in the mine. And on March 3rd, 2009, investigators removed concrete walls. No, the mine was well kept, and it was closed in order to seal the cave. And behind these walls, they basically found over 1,000 unidentified bodies of victims. The exact number of those bodies is not known at the moment. You know, it could be from 1,000 to 4,000 people, bodies of those people who were somewhere executed there. And the victims, among whom there appear to be also women, were stripped naked, and before being killed, so identification is very difficult. And they were basically, their hands of the prisoners were tied together. As you can see from my first slide, they were tied to this rope. And basically they were forced into mine, and then they were somebody executed by machine guns by Communist partisans after the end of the Second World War. And just recently another gravesite was found in Slovenia. And this is just a photo, so you can illustrate, imagine how the cave looks inside. You know, And this is only 1 feet. The mine has 4 feet, so you can imagine the number of victims is even higher than initially envisaged. Now, in Slovenia after the Second World War, it is alleged that as many as 130,000 persons are estimated to have been summarily executed by the members of the Slovenian Communist Party in the months especially in June, July, August, September of 1948. 100,000 people were executed. From those numbers, it's estimated that a tenth of this was 15,000 were of Slovenian nationality, whereas others were Croats, Serbs, and Germans who happened to be at that moment of time on the Slovenian territory. You know. There were armies of Ustashi and Chetniks which were retreated. You know. And majority of those people who were executed were civilians. Children, elderly, and so on. And people, men who didn't engage in the combat. And basically, the Communist Party tried to eliminate their political opponents by eliminating those people because they were afraid that if they don't eliminate them, then there could be some kind of retaliation in the years after the Second World War. No? And what is most important in this respect that those crimes were committed secretly. The Communist Party didn't want to know where those people will be buried. And those crimes were committed in the form of systematic summary executions at hidden locations all across Slovenia, predominantly in the unpopulated areas of western Slovenia, the forests, and so on. But they were mostly carried by members of the secret police of the Communist Party. Mostly by soldiers who, before that, fought the resistance movement against the Nazi occupation and also against home guards in Slovenia. And what is most striking is that most of the secret mass graves are not to be found. You know, individual graves and victims, it's not even know where they lie, and they never received a burial worth of human being. So mostly those people who are summarily executed, they still, at this point of time, they don't have a right to a name and a grave, which is like a fundamental basis of every civilized society, you know, at least in the European context, but also like in other parts of the world. And you can see here on the map where the mass grave sites have been found so far. And basically you see that they're spread all over Slovenia, you know? From north to south, from east to the west. And so far, 600 mass grave sites have been found. And they're ranging from the grave sites which have maybe 10 people who are summarily executed to the grave sites, as I mentioned, Kulajama, which have many thousands of people who were summarily executed. And a lot of those grave sites have not been found yet, you know. They still remain unburied. I mean, because there are reports, of course, local people and peasants and people who live in the villages in Slovenia. They would know where possible grave site lies, you know. But there was no official incentive to start full-fledged investigation of those crimes in Slovenia. There was actually a commission between 2004, 2008, which started this.
We're the best from this point of view in East European transitions. But then, yeah, how come? How come we still don't know who was guilty for what, and we still feel, we the society, as was said earlier, the society is still not happy. So from this point, as this criteria of success has not been met in Romania, we are not happy, even if we had hundreds of trials. Well, and then we saw that these trials are, in their huge majority, concerned with the events of the revolution, with the killings that have taken place, about 400 victims before the flight of Nicolae Ceausescu, the former president, about 1,000 afterwards, after the 22nd of December. These are the crimes that were investigated in those trials. So we were like, why the revolution? Since we've been living for 45 years in one of the harshest regimes, or that's what we thought, one of the harshest regimes of Eastern Europe. Why do we concentrate so much on those events? Well, of course we do. People died. Blood has been shed. There was a moral and a psychological emergency to deal with these things. And these things have been dealt with indeed in about 4 years following the events. By 1994, these trials have already taken place. People have gone to jail and also being set free for health reasons, most of them. But also, we found this idea, which we were inspired by the work of a doctor of Paris Institute of Political Science, that the revolution is not just an opposition event to the communism, like the strikes in Gdansk, or like, I don't know, maybe the Hungarian Revolution of 1956. The revolution was the point of exit from communism. And by the same token, the point of birth of the new regime. What happened there is crucial for what happens today and for the legitimacy of the actors, the political and non-political actors. We are all born in 1989. Well, some of you really are born in 1999, but yes, all the political careers, all the public existence of people being seen today on TV and in the parliament started there. So